Everywhere else it's okay.
Well, we got 6.
You gotta have a quorum in the room, yeah. Katie will be here, she's gonna be late.
Katie's 20 minutes late.
We good?
Yeah, just barely.
That's cool.
Mayor, you're good.
Whoop, thank you. It is 6 PM, Tuesday, September 24th, City Council meeting. I'd like to call the meeting to order and acknowledge that the press and public were duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. Join me if you're able for the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for the beauty of it. We thank you for the opportunity to serve this great community. Just pray that you would guide and lead our conversations and decisions tonight. In your name we pray. Amen. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Nicole, you want to do roll call?
Absolutely. Councilmember Pierce?
Here.
Councilmember Anderson? Here. Councilmember Ward?
Here.
Councilmember Bogosian?
Here.
Councilmember Myers? Councilmember Carroll?
Here.
Councilmember Hahn? Mayor Pounds?
Here.
You have a quorum?
Thank you, just barely. Next item is citizens' comments.
Randy Bell?
Hello. Test and see if this is working. I had to laugh. Councilman Anderson said, "What issue am I here to address?" I'm not actually here to address an issue. I'm here to thank people. So I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the crew from Islander 71, because frankly, what Johnny did with the help of Shannon and Cash was amazing. But what I wanted to talk about, and I called Desiree a few weeks ago, is Heth. I spent 3 of my 4 years on council on the Public Safety Committee, and I don't think there's a more humble, understated, honorable individual that I've ever worked with. And I spent a lot of time during the storm season. I'm gonna knock on wood, by the way, because we haven't had one lately. But I don't think this community realizes what happens behind the scenes when you're preparing for a storm and the kind of dedication and preparedness that comes from this fire department. And I sat there with them because I was amazed by it as we coordinated evacuations and emergency events on an unprecedented scale. I think that one year, Desiree, we had 5 named storms. But I chuckled because when I read in the Island Eye News, it said Hathaway resigns, and my heart sank. It was just a misprint. But I'll tell you what, there's not a more deserving person in this fire department for a happy and wonderful retirement than you. And that's all I have to offer tonight.
I think so.
Rusty Streetman?
Rusty, make sure that's on before you get going.
I can see a red line.
Yeah.
Is that good or bad?
Tap it, Rusty.
Okay. Good? Okay.
Tap it.
Yes.
Well, first off, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for your ongoing service to the Isle of Palms. And as I spoke to, I think last month, I think the entire staff and administration did an outstanding job during Debbie as well. There's 2 things I wanted to speak about tonight. And one of them is the first item is a Signal 30 Award agenda item you have on the agenda tonight. And I really wanted to thank you as a resident for you including this on the agenda for tonight. As a citizen of Isle of Palms, I'm also very pleased to see the consideration of the Signal 30 Award to the employees of Islander 71 who are responsible for rescuing the couple that accidentally drove into the marina off the ramp there on Saturday night, 9/14. I sent a couple of emails last week to council and city administration and asked council to consider recognizing the employees, and they're out in front of that already, as I learned. The citizens service, going to change it out or what?
Just project your voice, Rusty.
Hold that thought.
Just project your voice. You can keep going.
He wants to wait.
Just county gets about 3 minutes.
Yes.
Hurry up, Dodger.
Yeah. Time's up, Rusty. Thanks for coming.
Get the
Next.
Anyway, thank you very much.
There you go.
We're good?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll start over. No. All right, so I did send a couple of emails to council and city administration last week and asked them to consider recognizing all the employees for the outstanding citizen service they provided, and which the Signal 30 Award represents. As a lot of you know, particularly on council, this award has only been presented 10 times in 22 years, and 7 of the 10 times was awarded for heroic action and saving lives or saving real property, fires, that sort of thing. So really serious situations. I also want to thank Chief Cornett and Chief Oliverius for making the formal recommendation to City Administrator Fregoso recognizing Mr. Johnny Himmelsbeck for the award. My hope is City Council will also bestow the same honor and award to the other employees, I think Shannon and Cash were 2 of those, who assisted in the rescue of the couple from the water and also called 911 and raced to Fire Station 2 to alert the team on duty. These heroic young people, through their quick actions and without hesitation, in all likelihood, saved the lives of this couple. So thank you for the consideration, Council. The second item that I want to discuss real quickly is not on your agenda tonight, but I've been following this pretty closely in the Public Services and Facilities Committee meeting, and it's in regards to the City Hall building renovation, expansion, or replacement. And again, I just wanted to share some thoughts as a resident just in following this by watching the committee meetings and reading all the materials provided. I understand the next step coming out of the committee will be to take the discussion to the City Council workshop on Tuesday, October the 8th. And I believe you all, as elected officials, will give this very close scrutiny as you evaluate the expensive proposals and options that will be presented to you during that meeting. My challenge to you as a resident would be for you to solicit as much feedback as you can from the island citizens through public community meetings, possibly a survey, allow everyone that needs to and wants to weigh in on this. As I understand it, the replacement or relocation options would all have a very high price tag in excess of $10 million. Historically, we have taken very expensive projects like that or highly sensitive issues to a referendum for all island residents to decide. I'm not saying that's what needs to be done, but I know you as a council are going to be considering all of the options there. I would also hope that you would revisit the renovation options for the existing city hall that we're standing in now. In listening and watching the committee discussions, renovation of this building would be in the $500,000 to $1 million range. There's absolutely no doubt this building needs that. It's in need of major repairs. There's been a lot of deferred maintenance around the building here, but it is something I think should be revisited. I firmly believe our elected officials are and should be expected to represent the islanders' best interest through a representative democracy, and I don't think it undermines your power and authority in any way to gain as much citizen input as possible. Again, thank you for your service to the island. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Josh Schuser.
I want to discuss beach renourishment. Are you going to let nature continue to run its course? Are you going to help save our beaches? I've met with property owners along the beach at their homes and saw firsthand their struggles. A big thank you to them for their time. Residents want to know if City Council will help or hurt their efforts to protect their private property. I've been following the Beach Preservation Ad Hoc Committee meetings, and I want to commend them and thank them for their time. This is important. To me, beach renourishment is no less important than drainage work in the middle of the island. Research and science shows that a regularly scheduled beach renourishment program is the way to protect and preserve our beaches and dunes, and we must be proactive and save our beaches. I've met with the city administrator and almost all of City Council to discuss this issue. Thank you for your time. For the couple of you who I have not spoken to, I would love to talk. I've talked to leaders with the county government and the state government, including State Senator Chip Campson, for about an hour this morning. I want to thank Senator Campson for his time and devotion into educating other state legislators about our needs, Beach tourism brings in $19 billion to the state, yet our state refuses to provide for sustainable beach renourishment. Talk to Representative Nancy Mace's office. If there's a plan to have the federal government manage our beach, I think our congresswoman should be informed. I met with stakeholders in Wild Dunes to discuss opening up the gates to public parking to qualify for federal funding. Residents are really concerned. I want to share with you some questions the residents have asked me to deliver to you tonight. After Hurricane Matthew and Hurricane Irma, why did City Council put into place a project that only lasted for about 5 years and not proactively plan for future projects? Why did City Council not develop a sustainable plan for beach management? Permits can take years for approval, and projects also tend to encounter delays. Why didn't City Council follow CSC's recommendations years ago to be proactive in seeking permits? Where's the plan? CSC said the city does not need to wait until there's an emergency to apply for permits. Why didn't the city listen? Is the city going to help, when, and how? Should the residents expect to wait a year or more for adequate relief from the government? Will City Council vote to repeal the city ordinance that restricts property owners from adequately protecting their private property? Are you against seawalls in any form? Do you think pools on the beachfront should be allowed to fall in the water? What about houses? Does the city code of ordinance need to be more restrictive on beachfront development? Are you going to listen to environmental groups? Are you going to fund beach immersion locally or give up control to the federal government? Are you going to try to open up Wild Dunes gates to public parking so we can be a federally managed beach? Is the South Carolina Bureau of Coastal Management understaffed? Do you want the city to hire a full-time employee devoted to beach renourishment? Are you going to get second opinions from different engineers? Are you informed on dry sand beach renourishment and vegetated sand dunes? Could we put a groin or a wall at Breach Inlet? Should we dredge? Do you need the impact of tourism on not maintaining beaches? I understand this is a complicated issue, but our residents are tired, frustrated, and desperate for answers and solutions. You are elected to lead, so I encourage you to work together to find a sustainable solution. Be the spark, find the solution, we can do this. And I know I rushed through all of these questions because there was a lot, and I wanted to make sure everybody was heard. So I've printed these out, and I can give them to you if that's okay.
Give them to
You
Nicole.
can give us that, and we'll include it in the record.
May I approach?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Susan Smith?
Hi, Susan Hill Smith, 2023rd Avenue, Isle Palms. First, thank you all for your hard work and my wholehearted support for giving the Signal 30 Award to the Islander 71 employees involved in the recent rescue at the marina. Also, my gratitude to Deputy Chief Hathaway for a life of service to our community and much appreciation. Otherwise, I'm here to speak to the proposed options for renovating or relocating and rebuilding City Hall. First, as you continue this discussion, I encourage you to remember the residents of the neighborhood that is located just behind City Hall and proactively engage with them to keep them informed and hear their hopes and concerns about what might happen to this site. I've talked with some of them recently, and they're hearing things, and I think it would just be really good to reach out to them and build that relationship. With the overdue needs of this current building, which obviously has a lot of personality, I respect you working proactively to identify and work through your options, but encourage you to delay and downsize the project as much as is reasonably possible, because we do truly have some other pressing needs. I spent Sunday with residents whose families have homes at both ends of the island where we're having severe erosion issues. And I saw the impact of the latest king tides, how that's made them even more vulnerable. And it seems like there are as many as 30 impacted properties, some who are much more severely at risk. And while I respect the work that you and the city are doing to protect them and work on beach renourishment projects in those areas, those projects are really going to require a lot of attention, focus, and resources in coming days. So to that end, as much as we can set this aside, I think would be really wise with predicted sea level rise of up to 1 foot by 2050 for Isle of Palms. We've really got to get proactive on beach preservation, and I'm sure you all are in agreement on that. But we also need to be accelerating our comprehensive list of drainage projects to help guard against flooding. It's just these issues are so important. Our beaches really at the heart of why we are all here, and we've got to do our best to protect it and protect the properties of the people who live here. Thank you.
Brian Killian.
Thank you all. Brian Killian, 219 Forest Trail.
Just pull that up a little bit to you. Perfect. Thank you.
Better. Here to talk about the proposed ordinance to ban wildlife feeding. This committee, I know, has already spent time discussing this, and we're my wife and I, Allison, in the crowd there, and family, very appreciative of the time you've spent discussing this, as well as the Public Safety Committee is going through a couple of different sessions to try and get this to an acceptable place whereby feral cats are excluded as well as bird feeders, et cetera. I think what kind of informed us to maybe come here one last time and address this topic before the vote happens tonight is in looking online at some local social media outlets. It looks like this topic was much more polarizing than we might have realized. So I wanted to maybe to hopefully give a personal account on how not approving this ban is impacting our daily lives and our family, in the hopes of adding some context and maybe providing appropriate information as opposed to some of the misinformation that we saw floating around on local social media outlets. I can imagine, given how polarizing this is, how hard that makes your job. And while we certainly have very important things on the docket tonight and always for you all, I can imagine you're hearing from residents, and that makes this choice difficult depending on where you stand. So first and foremost, my wife and I are dedicated to preserving the health and safety of our family. That's number one, obviously, as I'm sure it is with everybody in this room. We also are very interested in preserving the health and wellness of the animals that call Isle of Palms their home. It is not our intention to cause any issues with the animals or take away anyone's joy from feeding the wildlife that resides here. Unfortunately, however, after attempting several different ways to try and mitigate the damage that was being done to our property and causing potential health issues for our children, given the defecation of raccoon feces or the defecation from the raccoons and urination on our property on a regular basis, we were declined. The folks that were feeding the animals declined to stop, and that left us with a few other options. We searched online, looked for every possible urban legend, old wives' tale, myth that we could. We sprinkled cayenne pepper around the entire property. We put units in the ground that would emit motion sensors to try and deter them. We had everything but a light show going on in the backyard to attempt to try to get them to go somewhere else to go to the bathroom. Oil and vinegar, bleach, nothing worked to keep them away, unfortunately. And the only other thing that we're left with is to trap the animals humanely and have them relocated, which ultimately disrupts the animals' life and their families and their herds or however they travel. And
Mr. Killian?
Yes, ma'am.
You need to wrap your comments up, please.
Okay. In any event, I understand how difficult of a decision this may be, given that this is split throughout the island. We certainly hope that, given the issues that we've seen at our residence, that's taken into account, and that we're able to find an amicable solution here. The goal is only to preserve our property and the health and wellness of our family, and when that collides with the health and wellness of the animals, we hope that this council will do the right thing and choose the health and wellness of its residents. Thank you.
That's all.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Next item briefly is approval of previous meetings minutes. We've got regular city council meeting on August 27th, special city council meeting on September 10th, and special city council workshop on September 10th. Also, the committee meeting minutes are attached for your information. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Any edits or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, for our next couple of items, I'm going to come down off the podium.
Okay.
Oops, sorry. Johnny and Cash and Shannon, if y'all want to join me up here. You're perfect. Thank you. So you've already heard a little bit about the Signal 30 Award. Just real quick, for those that don't have knowledge of what it is, it's an IOP award for special citizen service. The special award occurs on extremely limited basis as a result of a recommendation. The decision to give a citizen service award is made by City Council, and an actual award is bestowed by the mayor and City Council. The award was developed in 2002. It is named the Signal 30 Award because Signal 30 is an Isle of Palms public safety code for citizen service. The Signal 30 Award is presented by the mayor at a meeting of the City Council. Rusty already mentioned tonight, this will be the 11th award in 22 years. So, pretty awesome. Thank you.
My favorite number 2.
What a coincidence. So if I can have a motion to approve the Signal 30 Award.
Yes. Motion to approve.
Second.
Second, thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I'm going to read the recommendation from our chiefs, jointly from Chief Olivares and Chief Cornett. Just kind of sums up for those that might have been in a dark hole and missed this event of a couple of weeks ago, just to kind of highlight what you guys did, which is just fantastic and inspiring. So thank you all. Let me just read this memo real quick to you. This memorandum is being sent to officially recommend that Johnny Himmelsbach be recognized for his heroic actions on September 14th, 2024. We, Chief Cornett and Chief Olivares, are recommending that he be awarded the Isle of Palms Signal 30 Award. The Isle of Palms Signal 30 Award is a rare award and is awarded to an individual who demonstrated a special citizen service. On September 14th, 2024, an individual following a GPS made a turn in the parking lot of the IOP Marina and ultimately drove his vehicle down the boat ramp into Morgan Creek. Johnny Himmelsbach, a bartender at Islander 71, instantly sprang into action. Without hesitation, he dove into the water to rescue the two occupants from the vehicle that was quickly sinking. He was able to assist these two individuals from the vehicle, and with a little more help from others, got them to safety on dry land. Mr. Himmelsbach's actions were truly heroic and without question resulted in saving two people from what could have been a very tragic incident. He is a beaming example of what the Signal 30 Award is meant to recognize and should be commended for his service. So we've made this out to as best we could. So it's a Signal 30 Award presented to Johnny Himmelsbach and other Islander 71 team members for acts of citizen service, September 25th, 2024.
I'll just say a quick couple words. It truly is an honor. I really do appreciate it. By no means necessary, but it is greatly appreciated. I'm not just some stranger either. I'm born from a strange cousin from the north. I'm from Myrtle Beach. But I've been living in Charleston since 2004, so I like to say born and raised in Myrtle, made a man in Charleston. Actually, we used to come down here on vacation during bike weeks to get away from the traffic and riffraff, and we'd come to the Isle of Palms, so I have very fond memories of this place from a young age, and it's an honor to now be recognized by y'all, so thank you very much. Last thing, you used the word heroic. It's a really cool adjective. I appreciate it. It looks cool in front of my name. But the real heroes in the world are our men and women of our armed forces. These gentlemen in the back, police, fire, EMT, nurses, and our teachers, so those are the real heroes, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Have you talked to these guys about a raise of any kind?
I was hoping free golf at Wild Dunes, right?
I'm on it. I'm on that, man. And again, thank all the Islander folks for being here tonight. Dave, Chrissy. I was very curious who was mending the store. I'm only guest bartender for one night, for 2 hours actually, not any longer than that. So that was not on the list before. That's a good point. That's funny. Y'all are welcome to stay. We got one more award, so y'all do what you need to do. So thank you all. So next on our list is a recognition of Deputy Chief Hathaway ahead of his retirement. Chief, if we don't do this tonight, Does he not leave? I mean, could we just not have this and tie him down and keep him? That would be my preference, personally. So I want to suspend the rules of order and take action on Resolution 2024-09. Is there a motion to do that?
Motion to suspend the rules of order.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So then I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 2024-09. Is there a
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Deputy Chief Hathaway, if you want to come up with your family, and anybody else that would like to come up as a, whole room would like to come up as a show of support. but We got a couple of items for you, and I know Chief O has a couple of things for you as well. Thank you all for being here tonight. Appreciate that. So how this resolution was put together, and we want to present it to you tonight. I'll just read it real quick if you're okay with that. Recognizing Deputy Chief Hathaway for 36 years of dedicated service to the fire service and celebrating his retirement. Whereas Fire Chief Hathaway started his career in the fire service in the Wichita Fire Department in 1988. And whereas after serving as a volunteer in the Moncks Corner Rural Volunteer Fire Department and as a firefighter in North Charleston Fire Departments, Hathaway was hired as a firefighter for the Isle of Palms in 2001. And whereas he has served the city with unwavering commitment and dedication for 23 years, exemplifying the highest standards of professionalism and integrity. And whereas during his 23-year career in Isle of Palms, Deputy Chief Hathaway was promoted to engineer, captain, battalion chief of training, and deputy fire chief in June of 2021. And whereas throughout his distinguished career, Deputy Chief Hathaway has played a pivotal role in enhancing the safety and well-being of our community, supporting numerous initiatives such as the implementation of automatic aid that have improved fire response times and community education on fire safety. And whereas Deputy Chief Hathaway has mentored countless firefighters, instilling in them the values of service, teamwork, and resilience, and has inspired the next generation of leaders within the fire department. And whereas his leadership and expertise have been instrumental in navigating the challenges faced by the fire department, particularly during emergencies and natural disasters, ensuring the safety of both his team and the residents of our city. And whereas Deputy Chief Hathaway's contributions extend beyond his official duties as he has actively participated in community outreach programs, promoting fire safety awareness and fostering a strong relationship between the fire department and the citizens of our community. Whereas as Deputy Chief Hathaway prepares to retire, we acknowledge his remarkable career and the lasting impact he has made on the fire department and the community. Whereas it is fitting and proper to recognize his exemplary service and to celebrate his retirement as a testament to his dedication and commitment to our city. Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council does hereby recognize and honor Deputy Fire Chief Hathaway for his dedicated service to the city and extends its heartfelt gratitude for his contribution to the fire department and the community at large. Be it further resolved that the City Council desires to honor Deputy Chief Hathaway's exceptional service by naming the Public Safety Training Room in his honor to ensure that future generations will remember his contributions to public safety. Be it further resolved that the City Council wishes Deputy Chief Hathaway a fulfilling and enjoyable retirement, with the hope that he will continue to serve as an inspiration to all. So we got a key to the city. It doesn't fit anything, you understand.
Well, you got to remind me because I need to give you the actual key.
That you do have. Meeting room, we're really excited to do that. You're always welcome here, and you know that. Chief O?
My remarks will be brief, but unlike Chief Hathaway's career with us here and in the fire service. So Carrie, his wife, Noah, and Aiden, they're phenomenal artists, by the way, so if you need some digital art, they can make it happen. And I know where it comes from because Chief Hathaway, when I first started, I was kind of struggling a little bit with my presentations, and he's like,
what are you doing? You can't do that. You can't just give a list of bullets. Ms. Fregoso is going to just like throw it out. So it's got to be professional. So it's amazing. Right when I first started, from every firefighter that we have in the back, I have learned something from. And it has been wonderful to connect with him as a person. He's obviously an amazing father, an amazing husband, and he's somebody who I really value spending time with. Just like our firefighters in the back, I hopped in with the BC today with the battalion chief, and we got to go on a couple calls. And it helps us remember why we do this. And it's a life of public service to our elected officials and to everybody here that's involved with, citizen comments. It's so important to be involved. And Chief Hathaway has wanted to do this since a very young age. And he, just briefly, it's a really amazing program that they had in Wichita, Kansas, where he was from. But, he retires with us October the 11th. He has served with dedication, leadership, and steadfast commitment to public safety. His journey began in 1988 with the Wichita Fire Department Explorer Post 881, and his passion for the fire service was fed and ignited. He was recognized in that school for his academic excellence, and he was accepted into the Wichita Downtown Law, Public and Services Magnet High School, and he majored in fire science there. And they had a lot of rigorous academics, public service, mentorship, leadership, building relationships, and that's what it's all about. Building systems are important, but the systems don't function if you don't have relationships. And when I first was talking to some of our people, when I was riding around with Chief Hathaway, he was giving me a tour of the island, and I didn't know really anybody over here. And I was like, I can do this because this gentleman cares. He cares about everybody in the back because he didn't want some goofball bum coming in here messing it up. And he was somebody that taught me so much about humanity and about patience and leadership, being a mentor. So what do you say to a gentleman that's got it all? What do you say to a guy that's got it all? But it has been absolutely phenomenal. I thought the key would work, but we, as firefighters, we know how to get in without a key. We have our own keys. So I think we can get around that. But it has been an absolutely pleasure to work with Chief Hat, as we call him. And I promise I won't let you down with my presentations. And I'm going to do all the things that you encouraged me to do when I was first hired here. But a retirement like this, congratulations, you get to go back to your family. They have sacrificed a lot over the 25 years here and his entire fire service career. It's about, if you serve 24-hour shifts, that's a third of your year where you're working. That, breaks out to about, 3,000 days, and it breaks out to approximately 72,000 hours. And so that's how these guys and girls get so close. Because you live together, eat together, you're doing everything, and you're responding to traumatic events, and you learn how to work through it. But congratulations to Carrie and Noah and Aiden for being patient, because I know Dad missed, probably holidays and some stuff that he didn't need to miss. Probably came home tired sometimes, and you're like, dang, I want to, what's going on? So that patience is rewarded with this legacy of service, and so it's appreciated. And I have, Carrie, if you have that just behind you, if you want to pick that little frame up. We have one of our captains in attendance tonight, Captain Stickney, and then we had Captain Hayward, and they were both like, hey, when they heard Chief Hathaway was retiring, they wanted to, do something nice for him. And we have a drop-in for him on October the 10th at the Public Safety Building, which obviously has a room named in his honor there now. That is from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. So if you want to stop by, have some free food, and tell him thank you for serving, I know he would definitely appreciate it. But it's a blessing to serve this community. It's a blessing to serve with all our guys back there and our girls back there. And it's a wonderful occasion. And Chief Hathaway does not like these type of things at all. He's like, I'm going to get back at you. And I said, well, good luck, buddy. I have diplomatic immunity now. You can't get me. So, but it is a wonderful career and a wonderful opportunity to recognize Chief Hatt. The proclamation here was signed by all our firefighters, and hopefully, Carrie, you'll let them hang it on his wall in his man room or somewhere prominent, so he can, you know, let y'all know who he is and what he's about. So he gets a free pass on dishes. So, but yeah, Chief Hatt, would you like to say anything? Because I know you're a man of few words, but it'd be wonderful to have you impart some lasting knowledge on us.
Anybody that knows me knows I hate this. I've already ordered on Amazon PowerPoint for Dummies, so he's good. I also feel bad because all he got was heroic in front of his name, but I'm sorry, I didn't want to. It seems like everywhere I go now, I'm expected to give a speech, which is why I've started avoiding public restrooms. But you know, to hear the things that were read down, just want you to know that's a pretty boring story. Sorry that you had to sit through that, but it's also a little misleading. And what I mean by that is it's not about me. Honestly, I've done nothing that it wasn't with everybody else. You know, these folks here, as he stated, they missed some holidays and some of the kids' events. They had to do that. Never complained once. You know, always supported me in that. They knew that I loved doing this. Those guys in the back, I got to tell you, I never did CPR by myself. I never fought a fire of any consequence by myself. None of that was just me. It was a team collective effort. Anything that I've ever been recognized for is because it was on their shoulders as well. So, you know, I want to say to you guys, I love you. I'm going to miss you like crazy. Thank you for that. This is the most incredible job any person could ever have. I'll tell you. By the way, thank you for the great comments, Mr. Bell and Ms. Smith. It means a lot. But it's not just the fire service, the law enforcement. They're always there to back us up. We wouldn't have our trucks and our stations and our gear if it wasn't for everything that you guys do for us. Very few times we've ever heard no, if any. Spent a lot of hours sitting with Chief Financial Officer, with our human resources, not because I did anything wrong, but just trying to make things happen for everybody. One of the things I omitted that I share with Chief O in my time in the role that I'm in now, I've had to make a lot of decisions, some tough ones. I've had to do a lot of action, some tough ones. Some of it might have been appreciated by some of it probably hated by some. There's probably just as many people that are celebrating this and didn't want me to stay. But listen, I just want everybody to know what all of it is, what everything that I did with them, everything that they did for me, everything that we did here, it's about you guys. It's about the city of Isle of Palms, the residents and the visitors. It's why we do what we do. I totally miss someone who was on my hiring board and gave me the opportunity to be here, Miss Linda Tucker, also on my promotional boards. So I'm very appreciative of that. Honestly, all this is a great honor, but I've been honored for years just to be able to do this. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, it's not about us. No. I'm so short. Mayor.
Stand a little chair.
Inhale.
Got the mayor.
Mr. Mayor.
Don't do it. Run, go. I know.
Don't do it. Because I was looking at his wife.
Or Stephen, maybe they weren't here for you. I don't know, you know. Go home now? So our next item is old business, an update on beach conditions, shoal management permit application, and Army Corps beneficial use project. We have Steve Trainum from CSE, our coastal engineer, with us. Stephen, thanks for joining us, as always.
Thank you. Good to be here. This is the second time in a month I've had to follow an award and a retirement for a fire person. So, I wish I could have some better news. But anyway, we'll get into a beach condition update. There is some good news to report, fortunately, but obviously we're still dealing with some severe erosion issues as we're going forward. So a lot of things to cover. I'm going to try to do it very quickly, but then have some time for some questions that you may have. And Amy, I may need you to help me here. All right. So every day since September 14th, we've had a plus 7 foot tide. We have been just in a high tide cycle with a northeast wind event followed by a pop-up tropical storm that reached us, followed by a king tide event that hopefully will be trending down over the next few days. So it's just been a bad 2 weeks worth of water levels and in some cases wave events that have continued to kind of hit our erosion hotspots at the north and south end. We do expect some more impacts coming Thursday and Friday as Hurricane Helene moves across Florida. Right now it is projected to stay inland in the Carolinas, but we will have some of the winds coming from offshore from the outside part of that storm. So hopefully it'll stay further in. It is a fairly quickly moving storm, so it'll be a relatively rapid event, which is honestly a lot more beneficial than a smaller storm that just sits offshore for several days. But we've just been kind of getting hit. The efforts at both ends right now, we are kind of holding the line. We're not seeing a lot of areas that are improving naturally, but we've been able to place additional sandbags last week. This week, we've been doing some sand scraping at the south end to try to hold the line in areas where the sandbags are still lower than we want to get, and I'll get into the sandbags here in just a second. But looking out ahead, this upcoming, after this event, the tides are expected to be lower, so hopefully we'll get some recovery and at least a little relief to let the beach kind of adjust to a normal tide range. But we do expect the next king tide events in mid-October and mid-November. Again, with any kind of king tide event, the winds around that time is almost more as important as the tide itself. So we'll want to look at the weather, but we're going to try to get ahead of that as best we can. A couple of photos just to show what the condition was. These were taken late last week, so things have changed just a little bit. In some cases, they're a little bit better off today than they were late last week. But there are sandbags along almost all of the properties where they were scheduled for under our permit at the south end. I think there are 2 or 3 properties towards the 300 block where the next sandbags will be placed to try to just get that elevation up a little bit higher. But there's a wider intertidal beach there than there was several months ago, but it's still not resulting in a dry sand beach along that 200 block. That really is the focus area right now where the erosion's kind of persisted for about the past 2 months. Once you get a little further south towards the 100 block, things tend to improve. As you get north, up until this past couple of days, it had been doing pretty good north of the 400 or the 4 block, 4th Street access. So we're trying to maintain that area through the next couple of days when the storm's coming. We'll be doing some additional scraping to try to put as much sand up as the dune as possible. A look at the east end, a couple of things to point out here in the foreground is the Grand Pavilion area, and you can see a pretty wide beach there, and that's thanks to this shoal there's a huge shoal complex that's attaching to the east end right now. A portion of it had attached at the very southern boundary near the Grand Pavilion, and you can see the bulge in the shoreline there, and additional sand continues to move up onto the beach. So it's really sustained the beach in front of the Grand Pavilion area very nicely. Just north of there, you see a break in the breakwater and the breakers offshore. That's the area in front of Beechwood East that's the erosion hotspot right now, and it's due to that break in the shoal allowing bigger waves to come into the beach there and move sand in both directions. The good news with this shoal is there's a lot more sand than we've seen in other events. The shoal that attached in 2016 didn't have near as much sand as this one has in it. If you look at the photo on the left, you can see the breakers offshore, but you can also see the front edge of the shoal is only a couple of 100 feet offshore right there. So it's coming, it's moving every day. It's moving a little bit closer. I still expect several months for this section of the shoal to attach in front of the Beechwood area. But when it does, it's going to bring a significant amount of sand to the beach. If we look a little bit further to the north, this is the actual main attachment site off of Beach Club Villas, looking straight down on it. You can see, as of last week, it's almost attached to the beach at low tide. There's a very little channel that's separating the shoal sand on the right from the intertidal beach on the left. I expect within the next couple of weeks that little channel is gone, and there'll be a continuous or low tide beach where people can walk out on that shoal on a good low tide in the dry. Now that's very good for the shoal management project because the equipment now will be able to get out onto that shoal. What we're really looking for in that, and I have kind of an update on that, is as much as these shoals continue to come closer, they also increase in elevation, which increases the amount of area that's exposed that we could potentially harvest as part of this shoal management project. Right now, a good bit of it's still lower than we want it to be. Even at low tide, it's just underwater, and you don't want the equipment to have to dig or ride through that. So hopefully over the next 2 to 3 months, it continues to get closer and it gains in elevation. Looking further east now, we are starting to see more erosion around the Ocean Club and Seascape properties. We were anticipating some erosion of this end several months ago because we know that as the shoal's attaching, it's kind of interrupting sand moving to the north. Once it does attach, that sand will start spreading, but it's going to take a couple of months to work down that way. So we do anticipate maybe over the next 12 months, if there's not a project done to artificially accelerate this, that that area is likely to be in more of an erosional condition. Right now, that Ocean Club building is within 20 feet of today's high tide line. If we get calmer weather, it might go further away, but that's an area that we want to kind of plan for having some more erosion over the next couple of months. And I just wanted to show this just to give a little perspective. While we're still dealing with these erosion hotspots, I wanted to kind of flash back to what the beach looked like in 2007. And what this does is really shows that while we obviously have problem areas that we need to deal with, we have a lot more sand overall on that end of the island than we did in 2007. The top left photo shows the Summer Dunes Lane properties. They're in the distance there on the top right photo, but that's what the beach or the dune field look like today. I mean, you have a couple of 100 feet of vegetated dunes that have been stable since 2007. Similar thing, Seascape is shown in the foreground, Porticals in the background of that bottom left image, Porticals in the foreground here on the bottom right image. Still a very wide dry sand beach and dune field in front of that area. Yeah, Jimmy?
Sorry, just a quick question about Ocean Club Villas. When all this was going on in 2007, it was in really bad shape. I mean, we were thinking it might even have to be condemned at one point. And you said it's a hot spot right now. What's your projection for that in the next few months and the next year or so?
Yeah, I think over the next few months, it's going to continue to erode and probably reach that emergency condition where they may require some sandbags.
Didn't you say it was under 20 feet right now at high tide?
As of today, it was with these big high tides we've had. There is kind of a wider berm, but the tides have gotten over that, so there is some water actually reaching it. So I think technically it could qualify as an emergency condition. But I do think over the next few months, we are going to lose more sand there. So they should anticipate having to put some bags there, or if the shoal project is able to be done, before that time. But it could be, it could be within a couple of weeks that it gets critical if we have these storm events where things can change very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen, a question about the shoal management permit and the areas that we are requesting permission to move sand from the shoal to. It includes this area as well.
Yes, sand would be able to be placed in front of the Ocean Club, Seascape, and portions of the old 18th Fairway is a possible placement area under our permit. So we're anticipating that that might need to be a placement site for the shoal project.
How about Beechwood?
Beechwood as well, yes. Pretty much anywhere from the Grand Pavilion to Beach Club Villas was the other site there. So the status of the sandbags, this is kind of a review of what's gone on and where we are at today. Along the south end at Ocean Boulevard, we had ordered 800 bags, and as of today, about 600 of those are in place. 200 of those are scheduled to be delivered to the fill site later this week, filled over the weekend, and then being put out next week. That really the delay in placing the bags has been from the manufacturers trying to get them manufactured and sent. And that's taken several weeks in cases. So,
Steve, this is Scott. Quick question: did all those 600 go to the south? Because it doesn't seem like 600 are down there. I'm just because they didn't go 4 high, and it looks like that stretch along the 1500 still had quite a bit of gap.
Yeah, there are 600 down there. In some cases, there are 3 rows deep, and you can't see but the top row right now because the beach dropped and then it built back up. So the bags, unfortunately with the bags, the way you have to place them at the elevation of the sand, and you generally do that before the beach is in a critical condition, and you have an event that drops the beach, so the bags end up sinking or settling down, and then the beach may recover and build some sand back up, which is good, but your bags are still down, so then you have to build further on top of them. So there are 600 bags down there. The other 200 will generally get another layer to 2 layers along most of that area, but there's likely to be, if we still face the erosion pressure that we've been facing for the past couple of weeks, then we would likely need some additional bags to get everybody back up to a protective elevation. At the Beechwood East, the original bag installation was 660 bags. We added about another 100 bags later in the year, and then 300 bags were the most recent order. Of those 300, 200 have been installed, and 100 are left, which should be installed next week as well. We have also have funding for another 100 bags for that end under the last approved change order. So we're anticipating going and ordering those. Whether we fill them or not is to be determined, but I anticipate we would probably fill them and go ahead and get them placed as well.
Steve, I got a question for, I want to go back to the Ocean Boulevard ones, and when I walk out there, I do just see like there's one back high, which obviously isn't doing anything good for any kind of water that's coming up in terms of erosion control. So do we need to go back, and even if we have to do something from an approval standpoint, to put bags up on top of those bags to build up to a height that's actually going to protect the property in the dunes?
Yes, I think we probably will need some additional approval for more bags on that end.
Can you take those 100 bags that we allocated there and put into Ocean Boulevard? I mean, all these approvals and everything, we got storms lining up here, and
Right.
I think we just got to have some kind of a sense of urgency around here and do everything we can, even if we go to other vendors, or because we've been lucky so far. We can even get nailed here unless we start to act pretty quick.
Yes, so we went to other vendors to try to get things as quickly as possible. Again, that's been the bottleneck has been getting the bags manufactured and delivered, and as soon as they're delivered, they're filled and put out. The previous vendor was able to manufacture about 200 a week. They had to shut down their production for some maintenance. We are going to a different vendor that's going to have 200 here this week, and they are scheduled to manufacture another 2,000 and have them just on stock in a shelf that they would be available. But I do think having an approval for, up to, and just without committing to a number, but somewhere around 500 bags that could be used on either end of the island. And with those delays, we have had to kind of address critical needs as they come about. We've had periods where the north end, we had an event that kind of affected that end, and they needed some immediate bags, so we put bags there. as they were delivered, and then as the south end, up until this storm event recently, was holding up fairly well, but now it's eroding a lot faster, so now we're trying to respond to that as well. So we're kind of chasing our tails a little bit in response to what the erosion is doing on a day-to-day basis.
Well, I'm just going to ask the question, can we do that tonight? When other time are we going to be able to approve getting those bags out there? It need to be in October. By that point, like I said, we've got storms lining up.
From a procedural perspective, Mayor, council can consider adding an item to the agenda under emergency condition, under an emergency situation. You would have to argue that there are exigent circumstances which requires you to add an item to the agenda. It requires a 2/3 vote for the item to be added and a 2/3 vote for the item to be approved as an emergency item. So you do have the ability to do that.
Scott, do you have a question?
Yeah, I guess maybe John asked this, I couldn't hear it all, but yeah, I feel like we're just kind of playing catch up and having to make some decisions because of the one vendor situation, and we're not working on the weekends or what have you, where it's an either or. So, for example, if we're having the crises up at up in Wild Dunes, we're having to redeploy our only asset that's been working on the south end of the beach, leaving that part of the beach kind of naked and not being able to deploy concurrently. So, I guess where I am is that, we got a sense of urgency. We got more storms coming our way. We know of it. And Steve, I think you even said we know that we're going to have more erosion up at the north end. We know all these things, yet are we under-resourced, and can we do something about it so that we can get in front of this a bit and not have to be playing kind of catch up with these emergency ordinances? I'm all for, if we need to do some approval this evening, get it in place. If we need it, it's there. If we don't, then we don't. But I think it just appears to me like we're severely under-resourced to try to get this protection implemented as we had originally. I thought we were going to have 4-row high contiguous 1,500 feet along the south end, once we started deploying, and it's been a start, stop, either because of supply or because of the vendor inability to be able to, work the whole project together.
Just to clarify, our contractor does work on the weekends. They've been working on the weekends for months now. They weren't able to get a crew here on Sunday. Again, back to the reason for the delay is just the ability of the bag manufacturer to generate and manufacture enough bags. Our contractor works on the weekends to fill those bags, and that's what's going to happen, what we anticipate happening this week, for them to be ready to be installed on Monday.
And with the vendor, we're working with this new vendor now where these bags are a little different than the other ones. They're still the same size. The inside material is the same as the outside material of the new bag. It doesn't have that second layer. So we're very confident in them, but we do, before we wholesale move to a different bag, we want to make sure that they work appropriately in the field. But I do recommend that, at bare minimum, making an order so that the bags are manufactured and, at the city's ready to be able to be deployed is a very worthwhile.
How many would you suggest?
I think my initial suggestion would probably be 500, but.
And the cost of that is?
$225,000.
So
It's 400
the unfilled bags are about 150 a piece unfilled, so that would be 75,000, I think.
Okay.
If filled and deployed, you're looking at 450 a bag.
And Stephen, that's kind of just to build an inventory for the city, place them where we think we need them.
Yes, and once we have them there, I think to Scott's point, we'll be able to, at that point, decide, do we need to bring in separate contractors to be able to actually get them deployed faster? Because right now the bottleneck is the delivery, not the contractor filling.
Not the labor. And if you all recall, when council approved the $200,000 last month for the installation of 300 bags at Beechwood East, the approval included some additional monies to allow us to order additional bags and keep them in inventory. What has happened is just that the conditions change every day, and we've already used that additional money that was approved last month. So this would provide additional flexibility for getting ahead of the order and ordering, putting an order in and getting them ready.
Can I make a motion to add this to the agenda?
Yeah, why don't, John and I were just having a quick sidebar. Scott, why don't we let Stephen go through his entire update? Because, it all kind of plays with each other, the
Yeah,
Army
yeah.
Corps, and then we can do that,
At
Scott.
the end of this.
Is that all right? Scott?
And the plan had been that if the core project comes along fairly quickly, we have the ability to take some of the bags from the south end and move those to the north end as well. So having, we want to have that flexibility, but we need to have the approval to have that flexibility to kind of respond more quickly. The core project, they did start pumping sand over at Sullivan's Island this week. So they have kicked off the nourishment over there. I was over there a couple of times today. There's really not a lot to see. I think the estimate is they may be able to move about 5,000 yards a day. They hopefully will be able to kind of bump that up a little bit and have some better production.
Where is it? Because I went over there today, I couldn't find it.
Yeah, so it's, if you're looking from the bridge, you have that first groin right by Thompson Park. The excavator and the pipe are just on the other side of that. And right now, literally, that's all it is a pipe that's out in the water. And you may see water flowing out of that pipe that may be looking like muddy water, but there is sand in there, then that sand should be falling out and starting to build on the beach. But it will take several days at that rate before there's enough visible sand out there to make much of a difference. But that project's probably going to take them till at least mid to late November over at Sullivan's, and then they would be moving over to Isle of Palms.
What's the quality of the sand that's coming up?
It's too early to tell. That's why I was hoping to see some accumulation, but we'll have to wait until it starts to build so we can get some samples of it.
Jan, just to, by way of update, we had a call with the Corps yesterday, and what they reported to us is that the quality of the sand and what they've seen is as expected. It's about 90% sand and 10% silt.
Okay.
So no surprises up to this point.
Good.
So after they do Sullivan's, they'll move over to Isle of Palms. My guess is it will take them 3 to 4 months to place all the material at Isle of Palms. That's going between 2nd and 10th Avenue. Again, it'll look like a pipe that's just out towards the low tide line. Sometimes you'll see it at high tides. It's probably going to be in the water and you won't see a whole lot. And they'll just be continuously pumping sand out there. And then our potential supplemental project would then harvest that sand and move it up into the dunes to do dune restoration.
Can I just ask one more
Sure.
question about that? I didn't realize you were finished with that. But at that timeframe, it puts it spring sometime, right? Probably.
Early spring.
Yeah, early spring. But I thought I read, or you had mentioned, Desiree, maybe in our last update, that their contract goes to January with the Corps' contract with the contractor. Does that have any implications that it goes past that point? Is the contract they have with them to finish the project, or is it a time contract?
It is, they are supposed to be complete by January 30th. If they run long, then the contractor is subject to liquidated damages. But they should, everything we've been told is they'll have the ability to extend that and continue to finish the project. So I think they will complete the project, and it's in everybody's best interest, including the Corps and the contractor, to complete the full project, because that opens up the goal of that project is to open up space in those areas. So the Corps wants them to be able to do that.
So you don't see any risk of them not agreeing to the liquidated damages and the contractor take off in January and however much sand's there is there?
I wouldn't think so, because the contractor spent so much effort prepping for this that they don't actually start getting paid until they're moving the sand. So the incentive is for them to move as much sand as possible.
Yeah, we raised that question with the Corps yesterday as well, recognizing that there's been some chatter from among people who have a concern that the contractor is just going to pack up and leave at the end of January. They're contractually obligated to remove and place 750,000 cubic yards of sand from these disposal areas. They do have the liquidated damages provision, but the Corps also has a performance bond on this project. So there's definitely an incentive there for the contractor to complete. They also indicated that the contractor is considering hiring and bringing in another subcontractor to help accelerate and help them meet that contractual timeline.
And Desiree or Stephen, aren't they, this week they're not 24/7, but they plan to be 24/7 next week?
Correct. They're doing daytime operations for the first week of the actual stand pumping piece, and then they'll start 24/7 within a week, which would be next week. They also indicated that they're going to be evaluating, I think Stephen made a comment about how much they're moving every day. They're going to be looking at those logs pretty closely for the first couple of weeks, and with that, help determine exactly when they would be coming to IOP so that we can communicate that to folks in council.
And so far, it does look like the operation is able to be done with fairly minimal impact to the beach, so they don't look like you would have a significant beach closure. There may be areas where you would want to avoid, certainly maybe not want to swim right where they're pumping out the material, but so far, it doesn't look like too big of an impact, much less than a typical beach nourishment.
Steve, is there a long conversion time or transition time for them to move from Sullivan's over to Isle of Palms and reset up? Is it like take a couple of days, or is it a couple of weeks, or do you know?
It should just be a couple of days. They just have to float the pipe across the channel and start. And again, they should be starting right around that Second Avenue area, which is our erosion hotspot. So that's a good place for them.
And that 5,000 cubic yards per day, is that based on the 8 hours a day that or whatever they're doing now, or is that round the clock? What would around the clock do for volume? I'm just looking at it from an IOP standpoint.
Yeah, I think it should double it. I would hope that they can move 10,000 yards a day with the dredge they have. That may be a little optimistic, but with the method that they're using, but it should be a little bit more than 5.
We'll know next
They're
week.
still looking at 550,000 yards for IOP?
Yes.
And we'll know next week, once they
Yeah.
start the 24/7 operations, how much they're moving.
So the shoal management permit status, we did receive some comments this week that we will be responding to. The main comments were from SCDNR, which was a very typical comment from them, with a requested construction window of 1st of November to 31st of January. I don't know what the C is there for. And they also requested that it be limited to one event per year, which is, I think, what we were considering anyway. We will likely respond to that, requesting that for this year, they allow us an extension of that window to at least the 1st of May, which is the beginning of turtle season, just to account for the current status of the beach. I don't think we'll be able to receive permits in time to do a complete project by the 31st of January. South Carolina.
Later, I'm sorry, just a quick question. Later in the meeting here, you mentioned earlier that up there we're expecting some considerable additional erosion. Is there anything we should consider or do in anticipation of that to minimize damage?
I think having the sandbags ready, sand scraping in that area would be kind of a last resort, because the beach, the intertidal beach width there is pretty thin, so there's not a large resource of sand to do scraping. That end is already included in the shoal project as being a potential placement site. The only thing we could do as far as the shoal project is concerned is increase the volume. However, I don't think that there will be much more volume available that a contractor could harvest in one event above the 250,000 yards that's currently in the permit. So I don't know that, I think sandbags are really the only short-term option until the shoal project, and then you'd want to get that in place and monitor it and see how hopefully it's holding up long enough to allow the shoal cycle to kind of work itself through. So South Carolina Environmental Law Project also provided comments, just a general comment that the project was contrary to the public interest, but if it should be permitted, they suggested a performance bond, which I'm not sure exactly how that would apply. They asked for a construction window as well, but we usually try to defer to the resource agencies, Fish and Wildlife Service and DNR, on the preferred windows. And also commented about just public safety for trucks and equipment moving on the beach, that be considered in the permit, which is a fine thing to do. And then the Charleston Beach Foundation also provided a comment. Their main comment was just the idea of using public resources on a, quote, private beach, and that, using tax dollars for a beach within a gated area is not something that should be done, but that's something we'll respond back to and leave it up to the council to decide whether it's worth it or not. So we'll respond to that this week. Any particular questions on that?
And then what's next, even from a permit standpoint?
So we'll respond to that, and that's standard with any permit. We get comments like this, and then we're still waiting on the Fish and Wildlife Service to issue the biological opinion, which will also have some terms and conditions that would be included in the permit. And we're hoping that we can have all that in by the end of the year and have the permit in hand. So nothing really on our end that we can do in the meantime.
And this permit's coming from?
The state, BCM, and the Corps.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the large-scale nourishment, I know that's going to be for discussion here in a little bit. We're currently working on what we'll call Phase 1, which was coordinating with SHPO and doing some of the preliminary geotechnical investigations. All that's related to finding your source of sand. You have a very broad mixture of sediment offshore, and you also have the Second Stone Fleet that we're having to work around and work with SHPO on. So the first phase was the preliminary borings to see if there's good sand in other areas, especially looking at areas towards the south end for any nourishment for the south end of the island. We found some very good potential sand over almost near the Charleston Jetty. So that it's a pretty thick deposit of what looks like to be good sand, but you need some additional study to finalize those areas. And so the Phase 2, which is the permitting phase, would include the additional geotechnical data, that's additional borings, and about half of the cost of this permitting phase is for that geotechnical work. There's a subcontractor that we utilize that goes and takes these borings, and that's really the most important part of a project, is you want sand that works well on the beach, that looks good, and doesn't have a bunch of mud or shell in it. So that's a significant part of any of these projects. But then it will also include the additional erosion analysis, where you're defining the project limits and coming up with the quantities, putting that into an initial design that can be put into the permit application. Public meetings, both before and after the permit is submitted, and then all the documents that go along with that. And then the environmental reports, the biological assessment, and the essential fish habitat that are required by Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA. So that's what's kind of included in this proposal that's later on the agenda. We anticipate that once approved, we'll require somewhere between 3 and 5 months to put all that stuff together, do the additional studies necessary. And if we could get that submitted in that time, we could have permits as early as late 2025, early 2026 to have those in hand to be able to implement a project. I think that's all I had. So,
Which is earlier than anticipated.
I think that, the permits we can have in hand, earlier than the 2027 timeline that, the funding is kind of worked around.
And this was sort of an informal recommendation of some of the conversations that the Beach Preservation Ad Hoc Committee has been having about being proactive with having permits on hand at any time. Those permits are good for 5 years. There's a lot of discussion about the frequency of these projects, and our past history shows that we've been doing projects on the north end, which has been a highly erosional area, every 10 years. We did a project in 2008, another one in 2018. So this would accelerate our ability to execute a project before 2028 and as early as 2026, which is something that we have heard loud and clear about from the community, of wanting to at least knowing that these permits take so much time, to start working on those as quick or as fast as possible, to be able to have the flexibility to execute a large project when needed.
Well, and Stephen is interested in your phase two, and I know we've got documentation in the packet for that. You know, most of us, from a permit standpoint, probably have a building permit or something that's pretty easy process to, can maybe do it online. This is a whole different animal, obviously, to submit.
Correct. And things are getting more complicated every day. There's a new South Atlantic Regional Biological Opinion that requires more analysis. You actually have to kind of drag a video camera across the borrow areas to show that there's not outcroppings of rock and coral and things like that. You have to do a alternatives analysis, and with any project now, really we're kind of recommending a downdrift impact analysis, even if it's just sand, to know where the sand goes, just to make it as comprehensive as possible.
And Stephen, you said that the bulk of the cost of this proposal, about $200,000, are just related to additional borings and the geotechnical analysis to identify good quality sand.
Yes, it's a very expensive. They bring in a pretty big boat to come in and take those samples. And also and it's kind of written into that proposal that we are working on the beach monitoring. So any opportunity we have to duplicate services, we'll take advantage of that. So, we're trying to account for any unforeseen issues and cost out there, but we feel like with the other work that we're doing, we should be able to be as efficient as possible with that. But it's certainly a significant amount of work required.
We're still going to talk about the proposal when we get to it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Stephen, I know, needs to go, so if there's a question that council may have for Stephen for that, we can take it now, though, John.
Do you two need to suspend the rules of order and move it up right now?
Okay, Stephen,
I'm fine to stay if you want me to. I'm used to it.
I mean, we can,
Why
why don't we just suspend the rules of order? It seems
I make a motion to suspend the rules of order to move item 6F to discussion right now, at the present time.
all those in favor say aye.
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 Questions on item F?
I guess this is a change order on the agenda.
Yes, council approved a contract to CSC October of 2023 that included the first phase of the geotechnical analysis. At the time, council approved that as a sole source, recognizing sort of the uniqueness of this project, CSC's history, a lot of the information that they already have on our beaches. So it would be another sole source contract if approved by council.
But it's not a change order to an existing contract. This is a new contract.
It would be a change order to the existing contract that was approved in October of 2023.
This was in our budget, right?
The budget includes continuing permitting, yes, I think.
How much do we have in the budget?
357.
And so this is at 478. Does this include that included the borings and everything as well?
Correct, that included the first phase. This is an effort to accelerate the permitting process. So FY '25, our current budget is not inclusive of all the permitting. So it would.
This would be in excess of our budget.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And so this would come out of the beach management fund?
The beach preservation fee fund, yes, sir.
Yeah, beach preservation, yeah.
So did I hear none of this is budgeted this year for this particular project? This is going to come out of the fund balance?
Yes, if council wants to accelerate the permitting for the 2020, to be able to do a project in 2026, then it was not anticipated at the beginning of the
We
year.
had it decked in the fiscal '26 budget.
Yes, sir, we had it on FY '26.
So we're moving it from 26 to 25.
Yes, sir.
Essentially.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
Okay.
John, will you-
No, I knew that the 300 and whatever was in the budget.
320.
I just wanted to clarify the fact that I didn't know if there was some crossover between the first phase and this phase, or what
So
was actually budgeted.
The FY '25 budget includes $357,000 to cover $323,000 worth of work associated with the first phase. And that's what I think Stephen already went through. And that also included some coordination related to the Army Corps of Engineers project that we have going on. So that contract from October included 3 different scopes. One of those scopes was the initial, one was the coordination with SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office, associated with the location of the second stone fleet, and then the initial search and geotechnical analysis and borings.
So what are we asked to prove, the $478,620 tonight? Because I also read in here that there's a recommendation to allow a contingency of $50,000, earmark a contingency of $50,000. Are we also asked to be approving that, or are we just the 478?
The proposal is for 478, and Stephen, we would need to talk about timeline if all of those tasks would be completed by the end of FY '24, which is our current budget, or by the time that we're 4 months into the new fiscal year, if that work is going to continue and migrate into FY '25, then we would be budgeting the remaining tasks associated with this proposal in FY '20. We're in FY '25, right?
Yeah, fiscal 26.
All right, so we would be migrating some of the tasks from FY '25 of this proposal into FY '26 through the end of the year. So there will be an opportunity to plan for and budget for those remaining tasks after July of '25.
And there's a list of things you have in here that you, that are included, and there's a list of things that aren't included that could or could not be required.
In the event that they would be required would be if something out of the ordinary comes up, as in like an appeal of a permit, other types of engineering that's not ever really done with what we normally have to do with a permit. So I don't recall any times where we've actually been picking something off a list outside of a very clear change in scope, such as like a permit appeal.
Yeah, so there's a very long list of things in there, and so I just wanted to make sure how we would handle that as a council should one of those things come up. Are we going to then bring it back to council, or would this be a change order that would be done and there's an hourly rates in here? So I just want to be clear, how would we handle
So
that?
what we typically do in past projects, if there is an unforeseen engineering study or anything that's required from the permitting agencies that exceeds the approved allocation, then we would come back to council, explain that, and council would then would be asked to approve or deny it.
Yeah, and this would be a time and expense not to
Would
exceed.
it be possible, Steve, to maybe, I don't know if you can put up on the screen that list of the additional services? I wouldn't, even if you can give us a 2-minute overview, what's the likelihood of those happening? I don't know if those are dollar items or $100,000 items, but there's a list of like 20 additional services that are not in the scope. And, when I see these kinds of lists in a proposal, they're usually there for a reason, like they could happen. And I just like to get an idea, since this is kind of an unbudgeted item for now, or we're accelerating it, I guess I should say. Are any of these likely in your mind, having gone through this multiple times?
Yes.
And what could be the potential scope of these? Is this whole bucket a $50,000 bucket, or is it $200,000 bucket?
Yeah, does anyone have a list I can look at? I don't
Here.
have that
Yeah,
with me.
yeah.
Sorry.
And it's page 64 of your meeting packet.
Yes, and these are this is a very generic kind of copy and paste section that we include in the proposals as kind of a standard engineering practice. So the first bullet point is services resulting in significant changes in the general scope, extent, or character of the project. So that, for instance, is if we were to issue a permit application for nourishing 2 sections of the island, and then after it's been submitted, the city wants us to add an additional area along the center part of the island, that's a substantial change to the permit application. Now, honestly, we could probably handle that in-house, and our company is very keen on trying to avoid change orders. Renderings or models, those will not apply unless the state required a hydrodynamic model of this system, which they've never required for any beach nourishment before. So I don't anticipate that, and we would argue that modeling this system would not be effective anyway. It's too complicated for the models that we have. Preparing documents for alternate bids for work which is not executed or for out-of-sequence work. And this would only be a one bid project, and we're not bidding under this scope anyway. This is all a permitting scope, so it wouldn't apply. The next bullet point is detailed considerations of operations, maintenance, and overhead expenses, value engineering, and rate schedules, earning or expense statements. I mean, that's nothing we've ever had to do with the city before, and most of that would be the city's responsibility anyway. So if the city came and asked us to do an economic analysis of beach nourishment, then that would be an additional service that we would want to come back to the city and request a change order for. Furnishing the services of basically any other subconsultant that's not specifically included. We don't anticipate that in the permitting stage either. That would come in is if we're actually doing construction and they require a sea turtle monitor to be on the dredge, then we may have to come in with that additional request. Operations and maintenance manuals will not apply. Geological studies, we've described them, what we're going to do in the report. So we've got an allocation of a certain amount of work and scope. So if I think we have 40 borings additionally allocated for in this scope. If we took the borings and we're not able to find enough good sand, then we may have to come back and say we need additional borings to try to pin down a bar area. We feel like 40 is going to be sufficient based off of what we know out there. But that could be something, and borings are, again, pretty expensive. So that's where another, 50 to 100K I could see coming into the picture, should we not be able to find it with these borings. Staking out work of a contractor, this is not construction, so that doesn't apply. Legal expert consulting services, that would be additional, not included in what we've proposed here. So if the permit gets appealed, issued an appeal, that's kind of working in towards the next phase of the project. Services of independent cost estimator, we're not anticipating an independent cost estimator. And then the last one is environmental sub-consultants with pre-project monitoring. At this point, we wouldn't know what any pre-project monitoring would be required, but again, that would probably be in the next phase as a kind of a pre-project phase. So I think that covers all of them.
It's just your standard engagement
So
letter.
are we including the 50K contingency or not? I didn't hear that out.
No.
I don't think
not
we
at
need that at
point.
this point.
Yeah, not at this point, Scott.
Like I said, your standard engagement letter.
Correct.
Well, and I appreciate at least an awareness of the city of any additional tasks that may require a change order from the get-go.
Yeah. And if you'd like, I can kind of run through what the next phase would look like. After a permit is issued, then it becomes kind of the construction phase. That generally requires a final design. So you look at how the beach has changed from the time you submitted the permit application to the condition at the time of construction. All the contracting and bid coordination, putting a bid out for solicitation, and then reviewing those bids, and then doing the construction administration. And that's where you may have some pre-project monitoring if they want you to monitor the Barra area benthic organisms. But usually we have the permit in hand, or at least know what the conditions are ahead of time. So we would have that as a comprehensive kind of permit or a proposal package that would include everything to build the project, do your initial monitoring of it, and, kind of a final survey, and kind of comprehensive
It
construction.
looks like also all the borings are coming in, anticipated to be done by the end of the year, I think, in your project schedule. Is that your statement?
That's what, yeah, if we're trying to accelerate this, that's going to be the critical component in seeing when that contractor, the subcontractor, who's actually out of McClellanville, and so they should be able to get here fairly quickly and get that going.
So as I see it, we're asked to approve an additional $478,620 with the tasks described above.
Correct.
And then that list that we've been talking about, the laundry list, is if any of those come up, you would have permission, we wouldn't have to go back to approve that again, but we'd have to approve whatever the funds were for that, for each task, right?
I think we would generally treat it as a separate change order. We would want to come to you and say, this is what we feel like we need, and, it's up to y'all to approve it or not. I don't want to, assume any additional potential services here. I'd much
Yeah.
rather, be very clear on
I
being able
mean,
to have.
the one change order I could see would be, if your borings come in, 40 borings, and you find out that 10 of them are insufficient or whatever, and you've got to go find another site, and you need permission for a dozen or more borings, then you would come back to us and request that.
Yes.
So what we're looking at today is just then approving the task fees.
Correct. Somebody want to make a motion?
So move
Motion to approve?
to approve.
Second.
Additional questions or comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Stephen, thank you, as always.
Thank you, and I appreciate y'all accommodating my travel schedule.
Go have dinner.
My wife.
Are we, are we
Mayor,
doing the
it-
additional bags now too?
Oh, yeah, we can. Yeah, thank you, Stephen.
But we don't need Stephen for that.
Nope.
Permission, run.
Sorry, Desiree. say
No,
that.
I just wanted to alert you that there was conversation at the
Yeah.
beginning of this item about considering adding an action item, an emergency action item to the agenda that would require 2/3 vote, and then voting on the action.
That's the sandbags.
I think
Yes.
that,
I think.
well,
Yeah, just
I'll
make-
just make a motion
just
that
get it- get it
that
on.
we add an emergency item of purchasing additional sandbags to the agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
I have a
Wait a
question.
minute, discussion.
Discussion, sorry.
Yeah.
This is just to get the item out there. Then we'll have to have discussion on
Okay.
it, the item.
All right, great.
So all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Is there a motion next?
And the motion was to approve an item with emergency, under emergency circumstances, and there are exigent circumstances that require council taking action on this item that was not included on the agenda, but has just been approved to be added to the agenda.
What
Correct?
she said.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Now I make a motion that we, since that's on here, on the agenda, that I make a motion that we purchase 500 bags, additional bags.
What's that total cost?
Are
Let's get a-
these-
Let's
Well,
get
we've
a
got
second.
I second it.
So the cost of an empty bag is $150?
Yep.
So 500 times. I
And
I
maybe
know
should-
this, I
and
just
may-
want to check. 75,000 only gets us empty bags? Would you all like to, so 75,000 gets you 500 empty bags? If we want them filled, it's 450.
Well, you kind of need tires on the car, right?
Correct, so there's just to,
And that
Applied,
was what Stephen recommended, right?
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
applied
And we don't have
sandbags.
we don't have to use them all at
No.
once if we don't need to, correct?
Correct.
We
And
get
that's-
we get the bags, we pay for the 75,000 for the bags, and then decide how and where to deploy them. That's the other thing, these are not being allocated for one specific location,
Correct.
correct?
That was John's question. I mean, leaving it for Stephen and
Yeah.
all
I
our
think that makes
all our
more sense.
contractors to decide where it needs to go.
But again, what is the amount that you all would be approving?
They need to be filled.
So 225,000 gets you 500 filled bags.
Up to that amount. I don't think we should be filling them unless we know
Yeah.
exactly.
Correct, and that's how
That
we,
was
It's
what I
up
was
to
saying.
that.
Yeah.
All right, so there's a motion and a second, so discussion.
So I was just curious, how much about city money have we spent on the south end with this current major problem going on?
Probably all total is 3 million, rough
around
numbers.
over $2 million. We have,
The city.
correct. We
And
have,
have 850 from the state, is that correct?
yes, sir, that's what I was going to say.
So we're closing in on 3 million so far.
Not up to 3 million, the over 2 million, and we have a very detailed schedule, I just don't have it in front of me. We've been able to mitigate the city's expense in part by that $850,000 grant. In addition to that, just a reminder that the FY '25, are we in FY '25? All right. FY '25 state budget approved $1 million grant from the state towards beach nourishment.
So who's closer to 2 million plus a million from the state?
The million is not spent.
Correct. The million was a new grant.
But spent so far is 850 from the state and approximately 1.2 million of the city's funds, correct?
Over 2 million, sir.
A little over 2 million.
Yes, sir. And that has been on the ongoing efforts for almost a year between trucking in sand, sand scraping, placement of sandbags.
Other questions, comments? Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, back to the agenda. We've already knocked a couple of things out. That's good. New business, most of these we have discussed in detail at prior workshops and council meetings, so hopefully we can move fairly quickly. Approval of recommendation from the Public Services and Facilities Committee to enter into a contract with the lowest responsible vendor for bulk container collection and disposal for condominiums and businesses starting February 1st, 2025 through October 31st, 2025. And after that date, businesses would be responsible for their own bulk container collection services.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions, comments, thoughts, observations? Desiree, anything to add?
Just a note, we will be working with our legal folks to draft a contract based on the terms that we included in the RFP. We were looking at a 3-year contract with the option to renew for 2 additional years if both parties agree. So the contract will reflect that.
Mac, we're going to put you to work.
I have a question.
He's busy already.
A 3-year contract, but we're agreeing to make payments up until October. What happens after that?
So the motion or the recommendation that came out of the Public Services and Facilities Committee included entering into a contract with a new vendor at a lower rate and continue servicing both condominiums and businesses through October. After October, the city will continue to service condominiums, but businesses will need to transition and pay for their own bulk container service. So after October, the only thing that changes is businesses on the island would pay for their own service.
So after October, the contract is written so that we are no longer responsible
Correct.
for commercial pickup.
Correct.
So if they all decide to do their own thing, then this contract will just continue with condominium service only.
Correct. The vendor that the city has selected, the lowest responsible vendor, has indicated that they will honor the low quote, the low price per yard of $2.50 to any businesses that decides to continue servicing them through that vendor.
So we're continuing with the condominiums, but we're shutting out all the businesses.
Yeah.
Yes, that was.
They're on their own.
Starting in October.
In
That was
October
the
2025.
recommendation.
Yeah, so there's 13-month runway.
Correct. So we will work with the IOP Chamber of Commerce who attended the last meeting and to make sure that we communicate that to the businesses for them to understand what their options are after October and help them with the transition. And just to make a point, not to get into the weeds, I know that we went through a whole lot of this at the workshop and at the committee meeting. There are a number of businesses that utilize the city's municipal compactor that is located at the small lot on Front Beach. The city will continue to service that compactor, but just as we do today, where we seek reimbursement from those businesses for the payment of the user fee that we pay the county for the use of the landfill, we would be seeking reimbursement for the collection fee as well. So the city will continue to offer that service and that space for those businesses that do not have the ability to place their own bulk container in their property. Sorry.
Got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Next item, approval of new building access control system for Public Safety Building and Fire Station 2. You can see where that's budgeted. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next is approval of training room IT upgrades. Again, you can see where that's budgeted. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Other questions or discussion items? Again, we've hit most of these in a workshop at least once. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next item, approval of employee referral incentive program. Is there a motion?
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Additional questions or thoughts?
Just a comment, this version is revised from the one you saw at the workshop. The recommendation from the administration committee included to, or asked us to include in the referral program a provision to include beach service officers or any temp worker that works for the island in a seasonal capacity. So if they participate in the program, they would be eligible for a $250 incentive, employee referral incentive, if they recommend a temporary worker. So that's included.
Good change. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next item E, approval of new job descriptions for police and fire department. Is there a motion?
Make a motion, we approve.
Second.
Further discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item, consideration of fiscal 25 millage rate of .0223 and local option sales tax credit factor of .00020. And just for clarity, these are the millage is made up of operating millage of 10191, which is our current rate, and a debt service millage of .0032, which is for the total of 223. So no tax increase, everything staying as is for the year over year. But this is an annual event that once we get the appraisals back from the county, we feed back the millage rate every year to the county so it can go on a property tax. Desiree, anything to add to that?
No, sir.
I don't know if the important thing, if I heard no applause, there's no tax increase. None whatsoever. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Next item, also an annual event, consideration of distribution of fiscal '24 positive net result. This is, it's about 1.7 million, rough numbers from our previous fiscal year. And you will see in your packet, Deborah had put together 15% would stay in the general fund. That's the one fund where we have a target. It's 30% of fiscal year expenses. So that would be 15% of this 1.7 million, 5% to disaster recovery, 15% to cover the bulk container overage that we just talked about, and 65% to capital projects fund. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions? Go ahead, Desiree.
Just to make a note that these are unaudited numbers. Once the audit is wrapped up, we'll apply whatever percentages city council approves to actual numbers.
To the final number.
Yes, sir.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item, boards and commissions report. Board of Zoning Appeals minutes are attached. Planning Commission minutes are attached. Accommodations Tax Advisory Committee minutes are attached. And Environmental Advisory Committee minutes are attached. Next item, ordinances, resolutions, and petitions. Second reading, ordinance 2024-06, an ordinance to prohibit feeding wildlife, excluding feral cats and birds. Just real quick, by way of history, if you will, to some extent. Earlier this year, you'll recall, we had a significant amount of coyote sightings and attacks on the island. We had tasked staff and chief specifically to come back with actions that we can take to maybe mitigate, slow the sightings, slow the attacks. I know Chief Cornett, not to speak for you, you can do it yourself, but did some research, talked to our city prosecutor about our current ordinance, our current nuisance ordinance. I believe the feedback was it needed more specificity around it, which is what we have in front of us today. This has gone from committee to workshop to committee to council, back for a second reading. And Chief, why don't you just come up, Chief, because I know there are going to be some questions. And I believe, if I'm correct, DNR suggested this as a course of action for us as well. Again, this is not going to solve our coyote issues by any stretch, but it's at least a step to get there. Chief.
Yes, sir. So this wasn't DNR, but it was when we met with the director of USDA.
Different acronym. It's okay.
He's a little bit It's a
might
federal
be-
level, got to give him his credit. But we were discussing ways to mitigate risks associated with coyotes, specifically how to mitigate risks or reduce opportunities for those coyotes to interact with humans. And one of the areas that he mentioned specifically was not leaving food out for other animals, because that would draw the coyotes to the small animals that are eating that food. And so he did feel that an ordinance that would address that would specifically help with the coyotes as well as other issues that were brought up. And in regards to the question that came in the last council after the first reading related to prosecuting under our current city ordinance, our city prosecutor said there's a possibility we could, but it would require us to bring in, let me clarify, he said we could. However, to do so, we would have to bring in expert witnesses that are wildlife biologists that would have to be summoned to court to testify that it was a health issue for residents. He said it would be much easier and he would feel more comfortable with a specific ordinance like this to move forward with addressing those issues.
And again, Chief, sorry, John, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, we talked about this in our committee meeting, I think, twice now, but it's more than just the coyotes, though. It's also, there's a couple other, I think, factors that we considered this. One is what during the public comments, when Mr. Killian came up and, has raccoons going through his yard while they're cute and their parade, they present a real public safety to his children. And to him, and then you go on with the DNR, and Chief, I think you brought this up, I'll use the right acronym, DNR this time, that really, it's harmful to feed the animals. It's harmful to the animals. So all those that want or that maybe oppose this because they want to feed the animals, because they love the animals, are actually doing harm to the animals. And so I really think this is a good ordinance for us. And I don't think it's one intended that the police force is going to go around looking for, people feeding berries to turtles or stuff like that. This is going to be, serious violations of the ordinance that really present a public safety. And this does contribute, as you already said, I think, to the coyote issue because of the other factors. It brings, not only it weakens the animals that they're feeding, that then bring the coyotes into where we all live to feed on the animals. And so that's why we're seeing more sightings than what we have before. So I support this. I think it's a good ordinance.
I agree.
Okay, sorry.
Is there going to be a motion or not?
Make one.
I ain't making it.
Motion.
I make a motion that we
Motion to-
approve.
Second.
As amended, since this is a
Yes,
different
as
version
amended. Correct.
from what you approved for first reading.
I was just going to say, I think this is well needed, and I appreciate the work that's been done by everybody on this. I think it's hard to find any reasonable person anywhere that says that this is bad for anyone or anything. It's harmful to animals to feed them, wild animals to feed them. It brings them together, makes them more likely to get diseases. It makes them more likely to get attacked by predators. It brings the predators around. It makes them less afraid of humans. It makes their babies not learn to find their own food because they're reliant on humans. It's unbelievable. The list goes on and on and on. And I just read a Natural Wildlife Adventures and World Wildlife Fund Natural Habitat Expedition leader, Aaron Vaught, said, "Feeding wildlife is actually a form of animal cruelty. More often than not, the wild animals end up paying the price of our bad habits." So I think this is a really much-needed ordinance.
Jimmy.
Cities incorporated in 1953. 71 years we've gone without this, having this ordinance ban. I understand the argument about the coyotes, but I don't think the public nuisance ordinance, section 6.1, 13 through 19, has been exhausted, which it should be. You see, we keep saying it's going to cause a reduction in the coyotes. Is there any evidence that this would cause any reduction in coyote sightings or coyotes on the island? Is there any other municipality in South Carolina or anywhere that has passed a similar ban on the feeding of all wildlife, except for feral cats and birds, have they seen a reduction in coyote sightings and coyote problems? Is there any evidence whatsoever? Bird seeds will attract the coyotes. The ordinance does not prohibit water. And when it's dry, water can be just of an alluring attraction to a coyote, more so than food if they're thirsty. And we all know that wildlife and all living beings can live a lot longer without food than they can water. And so the water is there, but the food is not. And some, 2 doors down from me, I have a neighbor, and she's got a box turtle in her yard, and stays outside. And sometimes she feeds the box turtle berries, and this would be outlawed for her. No one has mentioned the actual term, and it's a ban on feeding wildlife. I just don't know where we're going with this. We've been fined for 71 years without it. There's been a lot of studies and a lot of work done saying that even if you reduce the population of the coyotes, they're just going to start breeding earlier in life. And I just don't see what this solves.
Ashley.
I fully sympathize with what's going on, especially with some of our residents on the island with their raccoons and stuff. So this is not any kind of slight towards them, but just a general curiosity. Should someone continue to feed such animals, and so the police are contacted and they approach and, say they're going to issue a citation, what happens when, or if the person says, well, I'm just putting food out for a feral cat? And how do you, that's where I'm kind of wondering, what happens? How do you prove that they're not?
Well, that's a fair point. And depending on what they put out, I don't know. But if we have evidence that shows that other animals are coming and that they're aware of that, then we would address it. If we can't say 100%, we wouldn't make a charge. We wouldn't do that unless I know 100% that somebody is guilty of a crime. I'm not charging them with it. So it would take us looking into it a little bit more, working with neighbors. Typically, if we get a call like that, neighbors are involved, and neighbors have video footage or other things that can be used as evidence as well in court.
One final comment, if I may.
Sure.
This all came about, the best, my recollection is one neighbor, not being a good neighbor, but feeding coyotes, not coyotes, excuse me, raccoons on purpose. And the neighbor has politely asked him not to do that, and they refused. And so everybody knows there's a problem with feeding raccoons. That's a more reasonable approach. And let's work out something. Let's have a compromise. That it's not good to be feeding raccoons, but for somebody to have a bird feeder and the feed falls out and the squirrels get it, and it's not going to happen, but it could. They could be charged.
This excludes bird feeders.
But if it falls on the ground and a squirrel eats it, then somebody could say you're feeding a squirrel.
Chief, can you speak to that? You guys, your approach across everything that's on our books is not that.
Correct, sir. Our approach is a common sense approach. If the evidence is there that there is a bird feeder and seeds fall to the ground from that, then there was clearly not an intent to feed whatever gathered those
Let's give our
seeds from the
police chief a
ground.
little credit.
We would not. And our typical approach is not to go write tickets. It's not how many tickets we can write. That has never been the goal of the police department, to charge everybody, arrest everybody. It's not what we want. Our goal is compliance. If we can get compliance with a conversation, then that's all we're looking for. We don't. The goal, I don't want to go out and write anybody a ticket. A wonderful day would be one where everybody obeyed every law. That would be a fantastic day. It doesn't happen, But that would be our goal, is not to go out and write every ticket. It's to have conversations, give them the information, and then if they fail then to come into compliance, then we have to take other measures to bring them into compliance.
Has this worked in other communities?
It has been used in Tegakay.
Tegakay.
I don't know how to say that, but
Have they have a reduction in coyote sightings?
that I don't know.
We don't know. Good. Great, thank you.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Sorry, Scott was an aye. Sorry, Scott, my timing. Thank you, Chief. No items for first reading, resolutions and proclamations. Resolution 2024-08, authorizing the creation of a youth council. We talked about this at workshop. Just quick highlights that you see in the attached resolution. We're talking about 5-member council serving a 1- and 2-year term, just to give some stagger to it, just like we do city council, meeting at least quarterly. There's a kind of a catch-all item here at the end. City council commits to providing necessary support and resources to the youth council. That can take a lot of ways, whether it's attendance or support or whatever. But we talked about, Desiree and I talked real briefly about a scholarship situation, and I think that's a great idea for future consideration, but we'll get this thing up and running. I met with the Wando folks yesterday, principal and parent educator. They suggested, once you get to the senior level, you're kind of focused on the next step of life and have kind of built your resume already. They would suggest focusing on freshman, sophomore, and junior, but no issue with having a senior. So I think we will run this on a academic year, not a calendar year. Use spring of next year to go through our application process and get all of our ducks in a row and have it in place for the fall. So is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Questions or comments to any of that? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next item, Resolution 2024-10, authorizing policy initiatives and priorities for city lobbyists to pursue in the General Assembly. We talked with our folks last month, I guess it was, our lobbyists last month. The 4 areas that we had decided were beach renourishment funding, state A-tax changes allowing for greater flexibility of uses and our limit on dollar amount to be spent for advertising and promotion of tourism, stormwater infrastructure funding, and expansion of sewer infrastructure. Is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Second. Questions, further discussion?
I just have one request if
Yep.
possible. I think it's a great list. Could we put this discussion maybe on a future workshop to kind of peel these back a little bit, get a little bit more definition around them? I think they're all good, but they have a pretty wide interpretation. Maybe we could define some of the targets and the asks for the lobbyists. Might help
Yep.
us out on what we're going after and help them out on what we're going after.
Sure. Happy to. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. No need for executive session. There being no further business.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Off record.